Good evening. I would like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Housing Commission September 3rd, 2025 regular Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting that the Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public can be participating in the Oak Conference Room via Zoom. And we'll call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. Moving on to roll call, I'd like to introduce staff and the Housing Commission members present. For staff, we have Housing Manager Tim Wong and Management Analyst Ariana Milton. And for Housing Commissioner roll call, Vice Chair Beely is absent. If Vice Chair Beely does come, we'll note her attendance when she arrives. Commissioner Chapa. Commissioner Dumont. Here. Commissioner Cranen. Here. Commissioner Furslick. Here. Chair Schweitzer's here. And Commissioner Wong. All right. Ariana, would you provide some instructions for Housing Commissioners, members, and the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Switzer and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the September 3rd regular meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. As staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comments on an item on today's agenda, after the chair calls for public comments on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen for virtual participants. For those who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9. And for those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to me directly. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
All right. Well, before we proceed, I'd like to announce that agenda item D1 has been continued to a future meeting. So therefore, after public comment, we will be moving right into agenda item D2. Next item is public comment. So under the public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject that's not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. And you are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The Housing Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda. And therefore, the Housing Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment, other than to provide some general information. And with that, do we have any public comment? I don't see any in the room, but
Yes, there are no public comments in the room, but there is one online.
Okay.
So I'll bring up the just one moment.
Good evening, Pam Jones, resident of Menlo Park, Bellhaven neighborhood. And I just wanted to thank Charles Chapa for being applying and for being selected to being on the Housing Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam Jones, for your comment. And that is the only public comments we have.
all right. Well, I think that was a fitting public comment. Before we jump into regular business, I would like to introduce for the members of the public who are in attendance, our new Commissioner Chapa with us here today. And I'd like to give you an opportunity perhaps to just introduce yourself if you feel the need to do so. If you have any items to maybe briefly tell us about yourself and anything that you feel comfortable sharing. I'd like to give you the opportunity now, or we can hold off until the end of the meeting if you want to do that then. So not to put you on the spot.
Absolutely. End of the meeting's fine.
Okay. All right.
It's the first decision.
All right, well, let's get to some regular business here. So under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. as a reminder, item D1 was continued to a future meeting, so we'll proceed to item D2. And with D2, we'll receive, provide some feedback on the draft anti-displacement plan. And I believe that staff has a presentation for us this evening.
Yes, okay. Thank you, commissioners, staff, members of the public that may be online. Tonight I'll just be doing a presentation on agenda item D2, which is the anti-displacement draft plan. So just as a heads up, staff is bringing this to the Housing Commission to solicit your feedback tonight. This feedback will then be relayed to City Council during a study session later this month. So tonight you're only being asked to provide your feedback on the draft executive summary, not the entirety of the plan. We will bring it back to the Housing Commission at a later date, but just wanted to clarify that. But your feedback will also be included in staff's presentation to the City Council for study session.
We're getting one of the early.
Yeah. Congrats. Okay, so for the recommendation tonight, again, staff recommends that the Housing Commission review and provide feedback on the draft anti-displacement plan recommendations. So let's just talk about displacement. So what is displacement? Displacement occurs when people need to relocate from their homes or neighborhoods due to a variety of factors that are normally outside of their own control. There are multiple kinds or types of displacement, which could include physical displacement, economic, exclusionary, psychological, or cultural. And these types of displacement manifest into things like eviction, higher rent costs, gentrification, things like that. And these kind of things end up driving people out of their neighborhoods. So where did the anti-displacement roots kind of come from? So both the housing element and the environmental justice element have programs in them that require an anti-displacement strategy to be created. During the outreach for both of these elements, staff ended up doing things like tabling at farmers markets, doing community events, a lot of community outreach. And one of the things that both of these elements have in common is that the community stressed that there was a need for an anti-displacement strategy. So it was important that both of them have a program that addresses them. So program H2E, which is the anti-displacement strategy, it asks for a strategy to be developed to address displacement and evaluate community tools, include, resident and organization input. The program implementation was to start happening by January of last year, but understanding it's a multi-year effort, it's not gonna all happen within that year or 2 years. And then also, importantly, there is a huge focus on the Belhaven neighborhood. That is definitely part of that program. And as far as the environmental justice element goes, there is a program labeled as EJ 5.G. And that is to ensure that the city's anti-displacement strategy supports all households and neighborhoods in undeserved communities, i.e. like Belhaven. Program EJ 5.H also includes a requirement to support access to legal counsel for tenants facing evictions. So, as far as the timeline goes, this all essentially started back last year. Staff worked with the EJ team and Hart, which is one of our consultants, to help kind of create the content for all of the policies and procedures we had to kind of weed through and figure out for a recommendation to create the anti-displacement strategy. In November, we held 2 different community meetings at the BHCC, one in English, one in Spanish, to kind of elicit that feedback. We also launched a web page on our city website that specifically is for anti-displacement. So that has like all the updates, any kind of other important information, timelines, things like that. And then in December, we analyzed the results from the meeting, which then brought us into this year. In April, we launched a citywide anti-displacement survey that was open for a number of months, trying to solicit feedback from people who weren't able to come to the meetings. We wanted to try and reach as many people as we could. So we did that, and then just last month into this month, or technically September, 2 months ago, starting in July, from July to August, we also conducted a lot of expert interviews with like community stakeholders, displacement researchers, and like legal assistance providers to kind of help inform our strategy. And then as of last month to now, we've compiled the results and crafted the recommendation. Now we're bringing it to your guys' attention and then to city council later this month. So one of the questions is also why Belhaven? So historically, Belhaven has a very distinct and racially and economic like identity separate from the rest of Menlo Park. As far as its makeup, it has a majority of people of color that live there compared to the rest of Menlo Park. And then due to that, there are a number of past discriminatory practices like redlining, exclusionary zoning, income disparities, and home conditions that kind of make Belhaven an at-risk community in Menlo Park. So wanted to make sure that that was a focus. So how can we address displacement? So in order to address displacement, we've got to identify the tools that are listed in the housing element and the environmental justice element, collaborate with organizations like HEART, which was our consultant for creating the strategy, and then also receive community feedback through a number of community events, an online survey, expert interviews, and research. The research was on the best practices that people believed or organizations believed would help inform and be most efficient to create an anti-displacement strategy. And that leads us to the 4 pillars, which is one of the ways that that strategy can be created. So now we're getting into the actual development. So the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars are a framework of housing that kind of help preserve like communities and also encourage the production of affordable housing. It was recognized as far as the Bay Area is concerned as a big concern and also something that we needed to put into place. So the 4 pillars essentially are made up of production, preservation, protection, and prosperity. So I'll go into it a little bit later, but normally the first 3 kind of make up the basis, but we also added another pillar, which is prosperity, to our framework. So going into production. So production essentially encourages investment in building new affordable housing or converting non-housing structures into homes at a variety of affordability. It's also used to lock in long-term affordability through the creation of like BMR units or affordable housing. So some of the strategies that we examined in this pillar include affordable housing production and also exploring changes to the below market housing requirements. Those guidelines would help provide opportunity for the development of more affordable units. Next up would be preservation. Preservation maintains and improves existing housing and ensures that it remains affordable and safe. These kind of strategies include a home repair or renovation program. We do have an existing program that we run with Samaritan House and Habitat for Humanity. So it would either be, creating those programs from scratch or expanding them. Also included are the purchase and preservation of existing homes and also the community and tenant opportunity to purchase. So protection ensures that existing renters and homeowners have the tools and rights to remain in their homes to actively avoid displacement. And they focus a lot on either protecting tenants' rights or expanding them. So that's what they're kind of like aimed at doing. Protection has quite a few strategies. It is the beefiest of this pillar with a lot of different, strategies that cities could put into place, such as like creating a rental inventory system, expanding a 12-month lease ordinance, limiting fees that are passed on to tenants, for things like laundry, utilities, parking, things like that. And also, of course, things like creating an anti-harassment ordinance to kind of protect tenants from intimidation from landlords who may be trying to have them vacate their units for some reason or another. So, the protection pillar, again, is easiest and has to do with the protection, creation or expansion of existing tenants' rights.
Now, are all of these things that we have in place today, or they're all options that are,
Some of them are in place, they could be expanded, but they're all options, they're all potential strategies that the city kind of explored.
What is the 12-month lease ordinance?
We're gonna get into
Oh.
that. No, great question.
And just to clarify, also, all these suggestions were came through community outreach of the housing and EJ elements. And so.
Yeah.
Trying to prioritize which ones to approach in a plan.
Okay, and lastly is prosperity. As I said, this is one of the newer pillars. And it focuses more on financial independence and growth, kind of ensuring that people are able to, have access to social technological progress, have the same opportunities to create an economic standing for themselves. So strategies like this would include, creating possibly a workforce development program that could potentially be focused also with Belhaven, offering financial planning and education classes, tutoring, things like that, to kind of help people become more financially independent. Yeah. So, get into the current city anti-displacement effort. So there are programs and policies currently in place that help address anti-displacement. One of the first is the city's 12-month lease requirement, which is essentially goes hand in hand with AB 1482. And requires that all residential leases be offered a 12-month lease, and not just a month-to-month option. And that ensures that tenants are going to be protected also under AB 1482, because in order to utilize those protections, you have to be on a residence for a year. So this kind of helps them be protected in case they need to utilize it.
but that only applies to just apartments, right? Not to single family homes?
Currently, yes. So that is something that you guys looked at my PowerPoint beforehand. It is something we were exploring, to.
Distinction, yeah.
And does everyone understand what AB 1482 is? Just to clarify further. AB 1482 is a statewide. It's called the Tenant Protection Act, and it was passed, I believe, in 2020, and it basically did two things. Created definition for just cause eviction statewide, and then secondly, rent stabilization. It was statewide rent stabilization that said that your rent could not exceed 5% plus CPI or 10%, whatever of the two is lower. And then, so it did cap rents at a maximum of anything, 10%. And then it enforced just cause evictions. So to evict somebody, it just required certain items or provided certain requirements that made it a just cause eviction. And then lastly, 1482, yes, did not apply to single family, nor did it apply to structures that were less than 15 years old. It was 15 plus, and others like dormitories and certain things, but the two main are single family dwellings and the age of the structure, if you will.
If I understand correctly, there's separate law that limits the ability to implement rent stabilization for single family homes, but does that also prevent just cause eviction or other things, or those were just left out of the bill for?
Oh, what you're referring to is Costa Hawkins, which prevents a rent control on any single family dwelling. It did not, but Costa Hawkins does not.
Limit other.
Yeah, like just cause eviction, but since it was in 1482. Which therefore. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's, thank you.
So is my understanding correct that there wouldn't be any Airbnbs in Menlo Park because there is a 12-month lease requirement? Or am I misunderstanding the?
Airbnbs, yeah, are slightly different
Oh, okay.
that,
This is long-term renting, yeah,
correct, this is more,
that would fall under. like,
rental,
short-
this is short-term rental. And short-term rentals are considered more of a commercial, if you will,
Gotcha.
interest.
Different regulations. apply
Yeah,
to those.
exactly.
Good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so also included in our current, city anti-displacement efforts, is our ability to create affordable housing production through inclusionary zoning. So that essentially requires that if someone wants to develop in the city of Menlo Park, if they want to develop, something over a specific size, they have to include a percentage of those units to be designated as BMR units, so they have to be affordable housing units. And then also, if for some reason the developer is unable to designate those units as BMR, if it's not feasible somehow because of the site or something, then they're actually going to be required to pay in lieu fees. And that in lieu fee would go into our affordable BMR, our BMR fund. And then that fund can be used to create 100% affordable housing in the city.
So what's our magic number, I think is what, 15%, unless there's state incentive on top of that or something?
Oh, for the density bonus. So 15% would be the highest that we can do. I believe if it's 1 to 4 units, then it would be none. Go on.
Yes,
Sorry.
Ariana is correct, any development of 20 units or more automatically has that 15%. And anything below there, it varies, but 7 to 10 provides 1 BMR unit, and then 10% from 10 to 20.
Okay, that's kind of scaled up. as it
Yes,
goes through.
yes.
Okay, also, in our current efforts, we do have, with our housing assistance program with Samaritan House and our housing preservation program with the Building Together. The housing assistance program, offered up to $5,000 of a one-time payment for like rental assistance, mortgage assistance. Problem is that the funds were exhausted at the beginning of the year, so, currently, we don't have any funding that we're giving them, but they do still run the program and they do still assist Menlo Park residents. They have different funding sources. So that was something I think for as well.
How often is that recharged or, is it just, was it one-time events that that fund was funded through?
As far as like how many times someone
Yeah.
can access it or how
No,
many times
it's just,
funded?
what is the funding sources, is it
Mhm.
one-time events or does the city put in a certain amount for? To cancel this project, maybe we take this offline.
Yeah, maybe we could, get through the, presentation and then have the comments and questions. that
But no,
follow.
all great
Yeah.
questions, all great questions.
Yeah, definitely. So the city has received, as of now, a $250,000 grant, from MTC, also known as the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. And, that grant requires implementation of both a rental assistance program and a legal assistance program. So those are two strategies that, ultimately make up our recommendation as well. And that also will require a funding commitment from the city.
And yeah, just to segue off of, through this grant, the city is required to provide 300,000 for 4 years, not 300,000 per year, but 300,000 for 4 years for both programs. For both. So 600 total.
Oh, 600.
Yeah, 300 each, yeah, as part of the grant requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so community feedback. So there was a lot of outreach done for this anti-displacement strategy. A lot of things that we did were we sent out dual translation mailers in both English and Spanish out to the Belhaven neighborhood and like surrounding multifamily developments. We ran TV ad monitors at VHCC and at City Hall, digital posts as well, and through the City Digest. So there was a lot of outreach done to kind of spur up interest and make it very clear that we really wanted the community's feedback in order to inform this this strategy plan. And so that also included, of course, having in-person meetings. Like I said earlier in my presentation, we had 2 meetings in November at VHCC, one in English, one in Spanish. During those meetings, we gave a presentation on anti-displacement, some background, and we asked for those present to vote essentially on which strategies they thought would be most effective. We had them on like kind of boards, interactive boards for people to kind of go and look at their leisure, ask the staff that were there if they had any questions or get any kind of clarification. So that was one of the first things that we did as far as community outreach goes. Excuse me, community feeds goes. Next, we also created an anti-displacement survey that we circulated citywide. We did the same outreach for that as well. Also included some postcards at city events for tabling with the QR code to kind of make it easier for people to be able to take the survey. We wanted to make sure that it was accessible. But at the same time, we also had hard copies at every major building on campus, just so that if people maybe didn't have access to computers or smartphones or things like that, they were still able to participate. And then also, we did, of course, expert interviews. We talked to a number of different stakeholders, practitioners, people who researched into displacement. And basically got their expert opinion on which strategies they thought would be most effective to inform our city's anti-displacement strategy. And then we also did research into best practices for anti-displacement efforts. I was like specifically looking up, you know, how a rental registry could essentially help, things like that. So we did use a variety of different methods to kind of help inform our strategy. So let's get into the actual recommended strategies. So these strategies, again, are based off of feedback from community outreach, meetings with stakeholders, experts, research findings. And the strategies are classified here as short-term to provide immediate protection for tenants. We also do go into a couple of long-term strategies as well. But any strategy that is not included in the current recommendation, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's out. It just means that it may be explored later. So the first strategy that we have decided to present to you guys is a rental assistance program. And that rental assistance program would essentially require additional funding to be created. We did look at studies like the San Mateo County eviction study, and that showed that the majority of eviction cases, about 85%, were due to non-payment of rent. So by providing tenants with assistance through a rental assistance program, that may then go ahead and prevent evictions before they begin, or they may even stop them in process if they're able to make that payment and continue staying in place. Next up would be legal assistance. So in the majority of eviction cases, again, referring to the study, San Mateo County eviction study, it showed that about 90% of property owners have access to legal representation compared to their tenants when they are in court. That percentage is 5%, so it's a huge disparity. So by providing legal assistance, whether that be counseling or representation, actually at court, at the start of the proceedings, it could result in more tenants successfully fighting or challenging their evictions. And that could potentially then again lower the number of evictions that actually get reported.
What's the difference between those two, counseling and representation?
So representation is more like having someone go to court with you, like to actually represent you in the proceeding. Counseling is more just like, hey, I have some questions about this is what my landlord's doing, what are my rights, like what can I do?
One's more preemptive than the other one.
So, our next recommendation is to expand just cause evictions. So expanding essentially AB 1482, past the current expiration date, has expiration date of 2030 as of right now. And, our expansion would essentially help protect single family dwellings, because as we mentioned earlier, this does not protect single family homes or specifically other structures as well, outside of just multifamily units with ability to unit number of more than 4. So this would essentially help positively impact Belhaven as well, because the majority of rental units in that neighborhood are single family homes.
And this is extending the Menlo Park policy, not AB, because we're not the state, right? So we can't.
Correct. It's a proposal that the local ordinance would, not have a sunset date. And by carving out rent stabilization requirements, the just cause eviction portion of 1482 could apply to single family dwellings. Yeah, because currently they receive no 1482 protections because of stabilization.
And also this recommendation would require landlords to have to submit the eviction notices to the city as well. So next, we believe that establishing a tenant anti-harassment ordinance would also be very important. So currently there's no anti-harassment ordinance in place for the city of Menlo Park. The ordinance essentially could lessen abusive behavior or intimidation from landlords to tenants, trying to force them to evacuate the unit for one reason or another. And so there is a template that MTC has already created. So we wouldn't even necessarily have to start from the ground up with this. We could use that template as base to create our anti-harassment ordinance. Next would be an expansion of the city preservation program. That current program is aimed at rehabilitating single-family homes in the Belhaven neighborhood. It is considered a long-term goal, but it could be jump-started by creating ownership opportunities and prioritizing the rehab of multifamily units as well, not just single-family homes. And also prioritize preservation projects that the city's NOFA could utilize as well. Where's NOFA? A notice of funding availability.
And would that be, I mean, if you're gonna put the money in, does that mean for multifamily, it would be in exchange for continued affordability or something like that?
Yes, that is correct. Currently, anything that any funding assistance the city provides typically comes with affordability restrictions. Yeah.
So those were our short-term strategies, but I also wanted to include some long-term strategies as well. And, while short-term strategies are important because they have a higher chance of providing immediate relief for people who are experiencing displacement, it's also important to have long-term strategies in mind, just so that the city can continue to work on creating and having their anti-displacement strategy evolve. So the long-term strategies would include possibly creating a rental registry. A rental registry is essentially a database of rental units in the city. And by doing that, it could help us understand market conditions, and it's also very important in creating a rent stabilization program if that is something that the city wants to explore. Also included in that would be the workforce development program that I mentioned, that was under the prosperity pillar. Again, could provide financial independence, a pathway to different opportunities like maybe internships or apprenticeships, things like that. Especially could help with the direct impact on the Bellhaven neighborhood.
And just one quick thing about rent registry, yes, it's a great tool to have. Create a rental database, but just please bear in mind, it will not prevent any direct evictions or preventions itself. It's a useful tool to have in regards to rent stabilization or those type of valuable information.
So, let's talk next steps. So next steps as of right now, again, we're aiming to go to the city council for a study session later this month.
Next
After,
week.
yeah, yes. It's faster. And so then, we're looking for the draft plan to be released around mid-November. From there, to round out the rest of the year, we want to come back to the housing commission, with the completed plan essentially. And then also, show it to the planning commission as well. Per the MTC application, for the grant that we got, we'll have to implement the rental assistance program, as in terms of like having it done in July of next year. City adoption hopefully will be happening in January of next year. And then for the MTC application, the legal assistance program will have to be implemented by September of next year. Oh, my slide didn't show up. No.
Is it available?
That's weird. Okay, well, just going back to the recommendation. So staff again recommends that tonight you review and provide some feedback on the draft anti-displacement plan recommendations that we've shown to you guys. This feedback will be included in the information that staff presents to city council for study session next week. And that concludes my presentation. And it was a lot of slides, so I can definitely keep this up while we have our discussion. But other than that, I'll go ahead and return it back over to the chair so we can start that discussion and public comment as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I do see that we have some members of the public, so before I open this up for public comment on this item, I just kind of wanted to go back to some of our rules here. So general public comment was at the beginning of the meeting. So if there is public comment regarding the item that was just heard, it would need to be directed towards that, and that is the draft anti-displacement plan. And with that, we can open things up for public comment. If there is a desire to speak on the item, feel free to bring a card over to staff here. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes, so.
Hi, I'm Karen Grove. I'm a resident of Menlo Park, used to be on the Housing Commission, and I'm also representing Menlo Together, which is a community organization. I have a lot to say, and so I wrote it down in an email, which I sent to all of you, and I hope that you have received it. What to highlight? I think this is great. I think it was a really good staff report with good data that backs up the recommendations. I'd like to see a more robust and local implementation of the Tenant Protection Act of 2019. I think it's really important that we extend the application to single family homes as you have recommended. But I think there could be a component that doesn't do that, that maintains the rent caps. Because in the absence of that, a landlord does not need to evict anyone. They don't need to file it with the city. They don't need to file it with the tenant. They just can double or triple the rent. And that has the same impact, and there's no consequence to the landlord, except maybe one time they'll get extra money because the tenants get charged really hard to make that rent. Another thing that I put in my letter that might dissuade them from doing that that was a recommendation from Menlo together during the housing element, is to require 4 months of tenant relocation assistance that is paid by the landlord in the case that the rent is raised too high. So, some more than the tenant relocation, the Tenant Protection Act ceiling. I think we should just do the rent caps for the homes that we're allowed to do it for. That's been a good law in California, and we should make it permanent in Menlo Park. It does leave out the single family homes, which most Belhaven residents live in. And so to accommodate that, I think we should also impose if it put in place a relocation system, it prevents episodic periods of homelessness, which can be devastating, especially in today's climate, where people need a safe place to go and close their door and not let anybody in. So I really hope that you'll consider that part of our letter, having a 4-month relocation assistance to be paid by the landlord. In fact, now speaking just as Karen Grove, because I don't need authorization to say what I think it should be 6 months. That wasn't an amendment to. I'll stop there. I did have comments on the VMR thing, which I also sent, but I sent it to 2 people who have pretty forwarded it. Okay, so be less. I'm curious to know what you said about that. I know I'm late.
We can say, just FYI, item D1, the DMR agreement.
Yeah.
The applicant pulled the,
Hold the.
yeah, so
Or just
it's being
present.
rescheduled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
Continue.
that was really fast.
Yeah. Item was continued, yeah.
Okay, looks like we do have a public comment online as well. There's no other public comments in person.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
Good evening, Pam Jones, resident of Menlo Park, Belhaven neighborhood. Sorry, I had a little cough there. I was really looking forward to that we're finally working on this, and especially the level of detail that has been presented, and deeply appreciate that, because it's so long overdue that we have a real program in the city of Menlo Park. Couple things and I'll start out with a known, and that is 300,000 is definitely not enough, especially for 2 programs over 4 years. So that the funding level needs to be looked at and increased. And that also means having accurate information from the agency that's been handling the program to really understand what their successes have been, and as well as what has not been successful, so that a robust program can be redeveloped that would address all of those issues. As far as the single family homes, as was stated, if that's the majority of the housing here, excuse me. And so there needs to be a strategy to reach out to the single family homes to make sure that they're always kept up to date on anything that has to do with protecting their ability to stay in their home. And that can be done in a way that is non-threatening when we have landlords that may not want their attend their the residents to be educated on what their rights are. And as far as having a rental registry, oh my gosh, that's so long overdue. And it absolutely must include apartments. I know that's going to be a challenge in some cases, but particularly the apartments that run their own programs, because we have to have data as to how successful those programs have been, and exactly who has been able to stay in there over a period of time, because they're having a turnover every year. That's a challenge. And the last thing, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and that is how every year we require people that live in below market units to recertify. That's absurd. That means they're spending their whole life trying to just get the paperwork together so they can stay in a place. And it also, in ways, prohibits people from increasing their income whenever possible, simply because it'll change their status and they have to move. And I would recommend a minimum of 5 years of allowing a person to live in that below market while they're getting their financial situation together. Thank you for letting me run out of time and completing my statement.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment online?
No, that is all.
All right, well, we can turn it back to the Housing Commission for clarifying questions or discussion.
Yes, I have
Anyone want to kick us off?
Sure. So I guess one is, especially reading through the table in the executive summary. A number of things are kind of like, they might face landlord resistance, right? And when I read the white paper that was referenced in the staff report, several times they mentioned like, tenant opportunity to purchase acts are important to protect against, the risk of landlords just choosing to do a condo conversion instead of, or selling. So I guess I was wondering, like, is there a reason why we didn't prioritize TOFA or similar measures early in this process? Like, and I know it's mentioned in the plan and we may come back to it, but is there a reason it's not part of the like first wave of legislation, right, too?
Well, yeah, in regards to the plan, what we're thinking right now is because displacement has occurred in Menlo Park, especially in Bellhaven, for such a long time, that we wanted to, or the plan recommends strategies that are shorter term. And so looking at those recommendations, they're through an ordinance, they're shorter, they can be implemented faster, and they'll provide relief sooner than later. With any successful plan, you do need short-term and long-term. And so, TOPA COPA, to be able to set up that type of program, is more of a long-term, and just to explain, we're still trying to define long-term. Is it in terms of funding, in terms of providing units in the long run? Like affordable housing production will take, even if you approve it today, it will take years. So is that long-term? But anyways, COPA TOPA is more of a long-term program also.
Okay.
In that, to secure the funding, to get the programs up and running. Because of that, the plan recommended that home preservation be looked at, because preservation of units be looked at, because that can be easily done through a NOFA, just by emphasizing preservation of units. So, but thank you for that feedback. Yeah, TOPA COPA, certainly a strategy that was reviewed, looked at, and so, yeah.
I have more, but if other people wanna go before I come.
I actually have so I was looking at the table on disparities between Menlo Park and Bellhaven, and I noticed for median rent, the median rent in Bellhaven is actually higher than Menlo Park. And I can't quite mentally reconcile that, because the home value is double, so why is the rent in Bellhaven higher?
That was through the American Community Survey, the ACS, based on census information and projections, estimates through the ACS. But notice that also that, but understanding that Bellhaven is 70 approximately 70% single family home. Therefore, single family homes typically get higher rent. So because such a larger percentage, and please note, this is what we're thinking also in trying to analyze the data, because there's no explanation given, it's just,
Okay.
so this is kind of the thought process of that thinking, understanding that.
May I?
Yeah.
Well, I live in Bellhaven. And in the time that I have lived there, in observation, yes, most of them are single family homes. But if you will observe that most of the homes will have 7 cars.
They're subdivided.
So
Okay.
that says that most of those single family homes, I live in one. There is 6 of us to the house, all renters. New information. So yes, that will make the rent.
Oh, wow, okay, no, that's very interesting, I didn't realize that, so the landlords are actually getting more rent because there are more tenants in a single property.
Needing to rent, that's right. So, yeah, whereas in West, a single family home is a single family in there, not rented. The rentals are in the apartment, rented properties are apartments. In Bellhaven, the single family home, if you look at the cars, there's 7 cars parked outside because
And I think that number, if we're looking at the data, is not necessarily as clear as perhaps maybe what's being described here, but the household size is larger
Mhm.
on the data table. So I mean, it's 3.5 compared to the 2.7 for the city. So I mean, you would kind of deduce from that, I mean, that it would be a larger household size. So, you know, splitting up that median rent, up dividing maybe, you know, 3, 4, potentially 6 ways or higher, you know,
Mhm.
could reduce the rent per person.
Yeah.
But the household size is on the larger scale. So.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yes, along that same line of thinking, yes, we understand there's a lot of anecdotal data, but until there's a hard survey to
Right.
actually count the number of people in each homes, yes, there's that thinking that higher household population, maybe some multi-generational, to help afford the rents.
true.
I guess I would just add that there are books out there, there's like Evicted and Poverty by America, where there's a lot of data about. The people who make less money are actually charged more for rent, and there are a lot of reasons for that. And some of it is credit history and there's a lot of other things, so there is data out there, not specific to necessarily Menlo Park, but. Just kind of, yeah, it was surprising to me too. It's like, wait, people who make less money than I do or pay more rent. So
What was the second title you recommended? It was Evicted and Poverty.
Poverty by America.
Well,
I guess I'll jump in. So during the anti-harassment ordinance, it was mentioned that MTC had a template legislation. Do they have template legislation for other branches too, or are there other like model legislation sources that you're aware of? Or for these other branches, are they things where the city would have to kind of draft a individualized law or ordinance?
I can speak specifically about the anti-harassment that MTC just recently published a model ordinance for jurisdictions to at least review, or it can become a base. The city could use that, and when it comes to other strategies and creating ordinances for those strategies, whatever they may be, they could come down to the city having to write its own. We do some research about what exists out there, what may apply best for the city of Menlo Park.
Some
Take it
comparable
from that.
like case studies of other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Maybe
Slightly out of
Don't
scope,
wanna
but yeah, I guess.
reinvent the wheel, but yes.
Right.
This is maybe a general question. If it's beyond scope, we can leave it for offline, but just like in general, does the ordinance writing process tend to start with model legislation or start with a more comparative study, or like how does that tend to work across the city?
It really depends on the situation.
Okay.
There aren't model ordinances for every situation, so it really depends. But understanding that, MTC has a model ordinance that the city can borrow from the recommendation therefore, so it could be hopefully easily implemented, provide that additional protection.
It's fortunate that we have kind of maybe the first development stages already completed by the MTC, so we're not really starting at square one, where maybe if we were doing some other ordinance, it would be starting at square one.
Process, sure.
Yeah, so, I think that's the benefit there with having that.
Also, I would like to add that the city is involved with, work groups with like other surrounding jurisdictions. And anti-displacement is one of the hugest topics that's across, Northern California. So, we do have, access to that as well to kind of bounce ideas off of, to kind of, not necessarily have to start from square one.
So just a quick question, you had it in the timetable, but, given that the rental assistance program is kind of out of Menlo Park funding. Is there a reason that it takes until the middle of next year for these things to get off the ground?
That was actually a finish date, but we will be entering into looking. But for the MTC grant, the rental assistance program will be kicked off first, and then the legal assistance. There'll be some overlap,
Okay,
but.
so
as
one could come
proposed-
before the other one, or?
Yes, understanding that a rental assistance program has already been at least partially implemented through Samaritan House. There are still things that need to be done, like review first, the program for its effectiveness, those type of things, but. That's a little bit lower hanging fruit than the legal assistance program, understanding that. Not sure what the universe is for legal assistance programs. Understanding that the eviction process is fairly lengthy, is it best to do counseling? Is it best to do representation? Is it all of the above? That's some of the background research that needs to be done to. Before launching
The
or
other thing that-
designing a legal assistance program.
It seemed like the other thing that's really tough about that was that I think someone there had said that like 4 out of 5 evictions are informal evictions. I think that's the number, but maybe, so that's also seems like it makes it's much more difficult to catch them early, if you know what I mean. I guess I had a question in there too, where you talked about having the city having to be notified about evictions, but would that be for informal evictions or just? Sorry.
No, it would be great questions, because evictions are formal. So there's an actual notice that needs to be filed. And using formal evictions, feel that it may shed some light on the general market itself, because informal evictions or general displacement.
Yeah,
Right.
That can be for anything, and this is, evictions are more a bellwether, tip of the iceberg. But at least through that, there's a little more understanding about how the rental market is actually.
so those informal evictions are more that, they double rent, or they, or that,
Yeah, or there's no official report.
Right.
They just decide maybe their lease runs out, we have to move,
yeah.
so.
Those are a little harder to capture, in it. And I know that it was noted, and I appreciate the distinction being provided, but on the rental registry that, doesn't address some of these items, but I think it's a really crucial program to have in place to understand the market and have that understanding of, where these units are located, perhaps what the turnover rates are, how effective maybe some of these larger developments, their programs might be for retention or some of those other items. I think that's really a good long-term goal. I understand that it does take a long time to build a program out like that, but I would probably like to see that be more on the short-term goal list, but definitely understand it takes quite a bit to get to that point. So I really appreciated seeing that in there. That's something to look forward to, the city offering.
I just wanted to say, I'm excited by the idea of the rental registry with an input on both ends, not just on the landlord, but with the legal element on new renters to know their rights, but also to be able to go and register themselves as tenants of the city.
And I think it would bring out data on what you
Data.
described, where, you know, maybe a lot of people are packed into one property and we just don't know about it.
I guess, yeah, seconding that being able to collect data on this seems really valuable. I guess in reading about this a bit, that was also kind of touted as one of the advantages of a legal assistant program, is it's easy to keep track of outcomes there and understand things are effective. So I was excited to see that early on. I guess sort of related to some of the comments there, can the city require landlords to provide like a statement of rights as part of issuing a lease?
The lease itself probably already has all the benefits,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean, if there are city specific ordinances, do those get automatically added? If, for example, if we have a rent assistance program, can we have a page that says, oh, here's resources to contact if
I think that probably falls a little bit more under what I think was four, the list of strategies being suggested, that kind of anti-harassment ordinance.
yeah,
So maybe some of that could be captured in, you know, an ordinance that would lay out maybe relocation assistance or maybe mediation, right? If there's an issue that we're going to either provide some moderator, a third party person to come in between the landlord and the tenant. So
I think maybe
something
my
like that.
slightly more general comment is just, it seems like we're going to take a very multi-pronged, like multi-step approach. The information that is useful to tenants might change quite a lot over coming years, and like it might be interesting to know if we have a mechanism to get that to tenants as part of the renting process itself, but.
So I had a question about the legal assistance program, and then I looked at sort of the pros and cons table, and then I think one is, the con is may face landlord opposition. What do we exactly mean? So if we provide legal assistance, the landlord is going to say, no, we're not going to rent anymore, or kind of wanting to understand what opposition we're foreseeing. And I think the second question is, what's the thinking behind how we would fund the program? Would we try to reach out for pro bono services from sort of local law firms in the area, or is there sort of another mechanism in which we want to fund it? For example, all landlords must kind of contribute to this pool called legal assistance, or a portion of the rent goes to that. Just kind of curious on what the thinking on the funding is.
Well, I will answer your second question first, in that, the design of the legal assistance program, all that has yet to be determined. Part of it is actually understanding what the universe is, and then going from there. Is it more counseling? Is it more representation? Just trying to understand.
Which is more successful.
Yeah, it's probably all aspects. What is more effective?
Yeah.
So that is part of the grant that is received, is research is step number one. In going, so your first question about may generate, landlord opposition. In some ways, during the interviews in which, as Ariane mentioned, talked to legal, we also talked to the California Apartment Association. And they were supportive to a degree in that, yes, counseling, those type of, very supportive of that. Not, when it came to representation, that was not as well supported. So, it's coming from the association, so.
So they might oppose the implementation of the law itself, I think is my understanding.
Yeah, in general, I think, any regulation versus rental assistance, which is more assistance.
Yeah, kind of a different beast in itself, yeah.
I think I was just very surprised by the percentage, 90% versus 5%, it kind of,
Very unfair,
Yeah.
balances.
Definitely, yeah, some of the data that was provided was probably alarming, would be a good word to describe it. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think this is an opportunity for us to create some slow change that we can begin to address that.
Just real quick, I'd like to clarify, in terms of the recommendations, again, the plan focuses mostly on short term. Whatever that's defined as, but shorter in, and it recommends the housing preservation as a long term. And just to clarify, the other considerations such as the rent registry or the workforce development could be potential options for another long-term strategy. But right now, the plan recommends housing preservation, noting that the Housing Commission's support, if you will, for rent registry, that will be conveyed to the city council.
For sure, do
Yeah, thank you. So I guess similar concerns about the timeline and wondering, especially on the legal assistance. If a notice to the city on evictions could be at least accelerated, or does it have to go as a package? Because I think just at least having a low bar of a landlord needing to notify the city on an eviction, might, kind of slow the process a bit. I'm just concerned about, the timeline and the number of folks who are going to be displaced in this timeframe. Or even, so one thing I was reading in the BAPA report, that the risk that tenants are gonna be screened out by tenant screening companies just because an eviction of filing was done. Not because they're at fault, but they scrape data, and if they have the counseling, if there's some legal assistance that will, if if it doesn't go through, and I'm forgetting the data, the wording exactly, but then that data is kept out of the public. And so these folks who had an eviction filing against them, but successfully, got it overturned or worded, and so that data is not given, it is not publicly available, and they can't be screened out. So anyway, I'm just saying, people can be screened out for just because someone's filed an eviction against them. And if you can get that counseling in place, or so that they can, and have been there as a renter, so that you can go back to your landlord and say, no, actually, my rights are these, and then they might back off. Then it keeps them out of that cycle. And what we're doing in the meantime is adding to the pool of people who are at risk of being screened out of opportunities in the future by some, just from an eviction filing company's file. Doesn't my long-winded saying that.
So you're saying is that we stop at the, or the.
Yeah, the sooner we can nip that in the bud, I mean, cause I just see this problem compiling as we're going, and I understand that, there's a lot of pros and cons about counseling versus representation, and just if there's something low hanging fruit we can do, or something to try and do like a quick build, I don't know if there's anything like that. And then my other question was, well, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, I have some other things, but.
Yeah, it's uncertain right now if one thing will move forward ahead. I think really the first step is to get the plan approved before implementing whatever the plan recommends, whatever that final format of that plan may be, so.
Yeah.
But understanding that because of the system, judicial system, if things can be done sooner than later, that would be preferred.
Yeah.
I guess general comment, since we are supposed to just give feedback, I also like the early focus on evictions. I think that's a good place to focus. I think that the current plan does it well, but it's a clear point that you can intervene in the pipeline, I guess.
My thought, I mean, after hearing it, it seems like you almost, if you have all three of those things again, if you have kind of the legal counseling, if you have the ability to have rental assistance, for that, that period of time, I mean, that combination and intervention is probably the most successful, but what do I know? That feels like it's the right thing, right? But
Yeah, I guess in terms of effective use of intervention, some questions I had about covering like short-term assistance on rent, and or foreclosure. Does Samaritan House do like follow-up statistics at all? And in particular, I guess that when I was looking at papers on this, it seemed sort of mixed about what the effects of a program like this are long-term. Like one of the things that seemed fairly clear was it helps reduce homelessness, which is a clear positive, but does it reduce displacement beyond the like immediate term of people are being priced out? Obviously, it's not, a one-time payment is not gonna change the calculus there. So I guess I'm wondering, where are the people who received this assistance 2 years ago now? Did it make that difference for them? It'd be wonderful if we could follow up on interventions just to understand what effect they're having, where it works. And then I guess sort of related question, there's probably a better term for this, but like burn rate, like how many interventions per month does Samaritan House do
We have some basic information about how they provided their assistance.
Okay.
To whom, but some of those longer things, if it was money given 2 years ago, are they still there?
Right.
That's more difficult to ascertain.
I imagine even just tracking people down can be tricky.
Yes, yes.
Is Samaritan House the only one listed because the city is partnered directly with them, or are you aware of other organizations that?
There are a number of organizations that provide rental assistance. But for Menlo Park, Samaritan House is part of the emergency network, and they're the representative for the Menlo Park area.
My follow-on question would be, so the, number one here, that rental assistance, is that as a replacement for Samaritan House?
At this point, not sure if it would be an expansion of the program with Samaritan House, a new program with somebody else. Not even at that point yet in that, but all those are great questions that need to be asked during the design of the next program, whatever that may be.
I know we're not even close and obviously we have to consider alternatives, but I'm supportive of expanding a program that's, you know, existing and working if possible. Um,
And if are the MTC grants, what is the time? Like, I guess partly of the timing, I'm wondering about when does that kick in, like, is do we have to have something done by a certain point in order to get the funding? And, you know what I mean?
The funding is actually to help jurisdictions implement different programs, so it's more reimbursable based on certain deliverables.
I see.
Yeah.
Anything that gets put into a program will be based on what the requirements of the funding.
Yeah,
Um.
I have a maybe in the weeds question. One of your early slides mentioned exclusionary displacement. And I guess I recognize the term from reading, but I didn't really manage to wrap my head around it, but at least some of the sources I was reading defined exclusionary displacement as people who are unable to move into an area, who I guess theoretically otherwise would be able to. How is that defined? Because that seems very tricky to figure out first, and second, like counterintuitive to me, given the definition of displacement per se.
Well, I think that exclusionary displacement, it might be felt in other areas, maybe of California, of the United States, but specifically with Bellhaven, it's more that people that are currently living there
Right.
are being priced out and cannot stay there, as opposed to not being able to move into the area.
Sure.
If anything, people moving into the area may have currently
Negative
higher paid
effects on-
jobs, have higher income, and then that will then drive up prices from where they now are going to be located. So it's more of like the opposite.
Okay, cool. As long as it's not something we're immediately concerned with, I can read on my own time. I was just wondering if there was some class of displacement or measure of displacement I was completely not understanding there.
So I had another question about, just to clarify on the carve out for stabilization on single family homes versus just cause. So are we suggesting just cause applies to single family homes, but not the rent stabilization part?
that is correct.
That's the way
That is correct.
to navigate that.
Yes, exactly. To be able to apply just cause to single family homes, it cannot be accompanied by any rent stabilization requirements.
I guess related to that, I mean, with our public comments. Does tenant relocation assistance count as something different from the perspective of that act? Or is,
It does allow for 1 month of relocation, and in addition, the city has a month of relocation. However, like the city ordinance, it starts with 5 units, developments of 5 units or more.
okay,
And it is 1 month. AB 1482 or the Tenant Protection Act, you get 1 month of relocation if the just cause eviction, or if the eviction does not fall under the requirements.
gotcha.
As defined in 1482, I
So-
believe, yeah.
Okay, if I'm understanding right, there is not a like statutory limit on adding that condition to something like a single family home, but it's not something that's in place today.
We only have 1 month for 5 or more.
So I was looking at the relocation assistance, and so it's only 5 units or more that somebody can,
In the city's ordinance.
yeah, that's the one. I'm looking at.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
5 or
I
more.
missed that. Okay. And that was capital in 3 months, 7 pages of households, and that is from the landlord, I understand.
Yeah. The landlords bear the cost of that.
Okay, but it is only 5 a month. I would think. I see. It doesn't help the people.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so we're, coming up on 8 p.m. I think we've had some great discussion here, but, I just wanted to do a little bit of a time check, and then if anyone had some maybe closing comments or some follow-up. I just wanted to provide a time check.
I'm happy to move on. I'm sure I could talk more.
Actually, just since finding feedbacks as a question for the housing commission. So it's based on the recommendations. How do you feel about the recommendations? And is there anything that the housing commission would like to see that wasn't recommended? And when I say recommended, again, these are strategies. The recommended strategies are what's recommended to pursue now. That does not preclude future implementation of the remaining 18 strategies or whatever, but for now, it's just, these are what should be done now. And so of the remaining strategies that were not recommended, did you see any that you thought should have been, or are you just reading through the executive summary, were you okay with just the recommended strategies for now? Again,
I was okay with the recommended strategies. I think my main note was kind of related to my first question, which was, especially if we should be concerned about condo conversions, basically. But I don't necessarily think that has much effect in Bellhaven, given that's mostly single family. So I think the plan as stated is good.
And I think maybe we can pull up that slide of those strategies just to maybe kind of guide the discussion to see maybe we've missed one, right? So maybe we want to.
understanding there was quite the list.
Yeah.
Of various strategies. And yeah, all the strategies are great they're all effective to a degree. But there's not a silver bullet.
Those were oversight. So we're having rental assistance, legal assistance, expanding just cause evictions. And the tenant harassment ordinance. And then, the city preservation, extension of the prohibition program.
And that's what.
Those are the recommended,
Mhm.
however, just going back. You saw the number of, for example, protection strategies.
I mean, it sure feels like you've got the right focus in my books, but I mean, I thought Pam's recommendations were really good. There's probably more money could be, it would be better, because it probably will get exhausted. There's also a good question of what is most effective when you actually come to implement those things. That was a really, really good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I appreciate the prioritization of the current plan, like identifying things that we can do quickly. I definitely think, honestly, almost all of these suggestions are worth exploring more, but if that's a multi-step process, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And I would just raise up the concern about the money running out on the rental assistance, and if there's anything that could be done. In, short term, and then somebody had asked that question, but I don't remember what the answer was, like, why do we have to wait until
Yeah.
next year?
I think Tim said it could be a little earlier on the rental assistance, right? Yeah. But we didn't give a time frame, but.
Yeah.
But there still needs to be some background research. To see how effective the current program was, if that's even possible.
Right.
What went well, what things could be improved, that kind of debrief will need to be done just to create a better program in the future.
Yeah, I like the prioritization, and I do feel if we add too many things and just throw everything in the bucket, like it'll take even longer.
Yeah.
The individual programs or initiatives to progress.
And I think that list of 5 in the staff report, I mean, that's already a lot to take on and to go through, but definitely supportive of those. And I mean, I think as we dive into each of those items, you know, maybe addressing some of these concerns about funding and maybe potentially expanding that or adding potentially and say the ordinance, some relocation assistance or some items or provisions in the code, if you will, to kind of address those you know, wide concerns that the community has, I think are a lot of opportunities that we'll have further down the road, but yeah, I think for the sake of moving this on, that's a longer list than perhaps a short list, right? So it's 5 items, but I mean, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Do we have a motion on this?
Yeah, so the motion is essentially, you know, to. Basically just to like kind of summarize, the feedback, what you guys are in support of. It sounds like what I have written down, it sounds like you, the commission has an overall support. For the recommended strategies for the draft plan, and I have specifically down, support for possibly implementing a rental registry. And also the expansion of the existing rental assistance program.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds on par. Well, I move, maybe if I can read your note there. You want to read it into the record, I'm happy to let you do that too, but I definitely move to support the recommended items contained in the staff report for the anti-displacement plan and citing some support for the rental registry program, as well as expanding some of our remedies such as like relocation assistance and renter protections. And
I will second.
all right.
Okay, shall we file a motion by Chair Switzer and a second by Commissioner Osler to provide the following feedback for the city council on the draft anti-displacement draft. Overall support for the recommendations in the draft anti-displacement plan, including support for a rental registry, support for the expansion of the existing rental program, and support for tenant relocation assistance as well. All right, I'll go ahead and do roll call. So Vice Chair Healy is absent. Commissioner Chapa?
Yes or yay or nay?
Oh, yay or nay? Yeah.
Are you in
Do you
support?
support the motion?
All
Commissioner Dumont?
Yes.
Commissioner Cranium?
Yes.
Commissioner Osler?
Yes.
Chris Switzer?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wong?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 6-1 with 1 absence.
6-1.
Yeah, or excuse me, 6-0-1.
Perfect.
Alright.
No one's opposed.
All right, well,
Commissioner Dumont, do you pass the pins down in case other members of the public want to, yeah, could you pass them down?
all right, moving along to
Thank you.
reports and announcements. We have some commissioner updates. If anyone would like to make some individual commissioner updates, and believe that we have a report out following. So if there's any individual updates from commissioners, feel free to do so. I believe one commissioner is distributing some pins that they that made, so.
Yeah, I'll try to bring some next time if there's any more. But feel free to take a couple on that.
You just made it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have any individual report outs. We can jump into the community engagement ad hoc report out. And I just pulled up here some of our engagement ideas. I guess to probably start this off, I created a running list of items, and we wanted to bring that forward to the commission at large, just to kind of see perhaps if we're on track, if there's any other ideas that we could investigate. And I can just read through those items here that we have. And let's see, so starting off, and these are in no particular order of prioritization, but hold at least some of our commission meetings at an alternative location, perhaps in the Bellhaven Community Center, for kind of better outreach in the community. Have, consult with some other outreach methods and metrics to kind of better understand some of the items out there, say San Mateo Legal Aid or Richard Casa, El Casilo, some of those other organizations. Potentially investigate, and maybe staff has some opinions on this one, but creating a podcast on knowing your rights. Or perhaps that could be translated into either a brochure to kind of better, provide renters with their rights and the education component. Improve community knowledge on housing and, some of the challenges and progress and the trade-offs that could, play into either the brochure or podcast. And maybe having a frequently asked questions or some component like that that maybe could live on the city's website for specifically like renters or tenants, perhaps even extending it to landlords as well, and having some of that play into it. And I think our last item was just better use of social media to carry messages. I know that there's a lot of information from Nextdoor and some other apps out there, platforms that potentially could be utilized, and definitely coming from, say, a city, there's some content control, and definitely the communications team perhaps would want to get involved with that. It may be potentially legal, but so that might have some limitations to what necessarily could be posted, but having maybe a better presence or something on social media. And then if any of my other commissioners on that want to add in.
I kind of heard one more tonight, which is, get out in front of tenants when they're signing their leases, if there's a way to do it, who knows, but with what their rights are in Menlo Park as opposed to the general rights. Although it sounds like it's going to bifurcate into, is it a single family home, you get one set of rights. More than 5 units, that's where it gets a little complicated, but that sounded like another interesting angle on what we're already, proposing.
Commissioner Dumont.
No, I don't have anything to add, but I'm interested to get feedback on our brainstorms ideas.
And I believe that there is, it wasn't in our list here, but there is an upcoming city event, the potential opportunity for tabling. So I believe maybe staff can help me out on the date here on that, but.
Yeah, don't know the time, but yeah, our September 27th, Public Works is having an open house for their courtyard. And so they've invited different departments, so there will be a housing table. And we already have a couple things about housing resources, where to go for mediation or legal assistance. We have legal aid, plus so some tenant resources there. There's a poster about the BMR housing we'll be handing out.
Is there gonna be anything to explain why this is not a good candidate for for housing, the corporation yard?
Oh,
Some people seem to think that's.
It's pretty amazing. There's quite the turnout.
Yeah.
So this is a good, especially when they roll up with the fire engine.
Okay.
And a lot of people, well, I'm not promising a fire engine, but I did. Yeah. That's Saturday, September 27th. I'll get you the hour. If that's something, one last thing, we'll have our housing resource guide. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a full that we just,
That is Tuesday.
so we can hand that out. And if there's anything else that the housing commission if the housing commission wants to participate, there's, housing has a table.
There's already a table, all right.
Yeah, just, so,
Yeah, if information could be provided, that'd be great.
okay.
I mean, I definitely would be interested myself.
In terms of hours, yeah, it's pretty much an all-day event. It's just not like a couple hours.
Sure.
But I'll get you the,
I'd be more than happy to take a shift if that's useful.
yeah. So,
It's the housing resource guide, but
Yes,
it's in Spanish.
in
version.
English and Spanish.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Picked it up over there yesterday.
So,
Well, I guess for our report out, I mean, do you guys think we're kind of got a good little list going or any
Yeah,
maybe items to suggest or maybe take off the list?
I guess the only other one would be, like, if we're thinking about having a specific, like, I know we talked about having a specific event for, it was specifically anti-displacement or just tenant rights, but, do we count things like tabling at other events as that? Is it something that you guys would plan separately as part of the subcommittee?
Yeah, I think that if I'm recalling correctly, maybe our work plan of having that one community event.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our language in the work plan was vague,
Sure.
at best, so.
yeah, just talk about our, just, sorry, not to interrupt, but.
Yeah.
With at least one event, but it doesn't preclude.
Right, additional, yeah, so I mean.
Bonus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess.
I
My
think
overall,
this could satisfy as one event, you know, having some presence there,
my overall feedback is just like maybe thinking about specifics of those events and planning those events might be also a good, like, prime of work, the work thing.
I think we've missed the opportunity for housing month this year, so, with the ad hoc being formed after the month, so definitely gearing towards next year's housing month would be
Mhm.
ideal for an event.
And then I think it was the second item you talked about. I was wondering if you could go into more detail about what you're revisioning there, the like consulting with existing organizations of some sort.
Yeah,
I mean, I found a couple of words, just that, I mean, I think they reached out to me and I was like. These seem like very natural organizations
Yeah.
to partner with, to get the word out, and one was more focused on East Palo Alto, but they said, yeah, it looked like they were also trying to expand into Bellhaven and.
Easter Casa.
Yeah.
I've talked to them before. Yeah, they're
Okay, so-
great. But yeah, I guess I don't know. Were you envisioning that would take the form of us going to them coming to us?
Going to them and.
Okay.
You know, how do we get this message
Gotcha.
out to this community?
Okay.
They might have some strategies, might have vehicles for us to do that.
and maybe that looks like just distributing, say, the brochure that we have, or some of these other items that are already prepared. So,
I'm definitely supportive of pursuing that. I think that like building connections with the organizations that are on the ground makes a lot of sense, like sets us up to, I don't know, network as collectively network, well.
I like the idea of the podcast. My only suggestion is that we do it both in English and Spanish, so you have a wider net. The other thing kind of that sparked really more of a question on social media is, do we have a sense of how renters are currently looking for properties? Because if it's through a specific website, then including some information on renters' rights kind of on the website could be like the first point of at least informing them of what their rights are as they're searching for a rental property. I just don't know if people are on Zillow or some other platform generally. So that was kind of one thought I had. The other thing is wondering if it's helpful to do community outreach in schools. Because, obviously we're talking about multi-generational households. So you kind of have a captive audience when parents are kind of forced to go to a school event with their kids. So maybe that's a way to also, and also to start from a young age, at least, letting kids know about rental rates, maybe the older kids, but.
So was that specifically what you had in mind was rights of?
No, just, generally below market rate of anything that we're doing that would feel more community outreach or just more awareness is helpful.
It's just interesting.
It's interesting because I tutor at Belhaven, so there is definitely organizations that could probably help us in that area too. And the Belhaven Elementary or, Ravenswood Middle School.
I guess, are there things? Definitely makes sense to target older kids where you can cover our normal topic material. Are there aspects of this that would be suitable for younger kids as well? Like, this is more of a brainstorming thing, but like, can we come up with some limited view that would lead to us presenting at an elementary school or having some sort of presence?
Yeah, I mean,
there?
maybe the target audience probably would be of renter age, but,
Yeah.
I mean, definitely having some more awareness in the community about these items, I think probably could be something we could investigate.
This is slowly becoming a discussion.
Yeah. Oh,
Great idea. If you want to discuss further, absolutely, be happy to put it on the agenda. If you will,
I was
discuss.
interested to just hear if there was a feedback on how holding one of our housing commission meetings at the Buffalo.
Fully supportive, yeah, I
That's a
think
good
we should do that.
Well, maybe we go into, future agenda items and staff updates.
Yes, future agenda items is next October's meeting. We're gonna do a BMR 101 before we enter into the BMR guideline updates. This month with the BMR agreement would have been the perfect intro to why BMR agreements are created because of the guidelines or all the, but that didn't happen, so we will do that presentation next month. And then, yes, again, there will be some administrative BMR guideline updates for your review. So that's in the month of October. In terms of staff updates, in addition to September 27th, the Public Works, there is the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo. October 17th is our Housing Leadership Day. And it's kind of like a local housing advocate get together, specifically for San Mateo County. Actually, October 3rd is the nonprofit housing that's there all day. And NPH is a little larger of an organization, but I think October 17th may be a good time for the Housing Commission. Past commissioners have attended. We do attend, we still have to be concerned about quorum. So if there's great interest, we'll have to split up the day, what have you. There just can't be more than four commissioners at
Otherwise, it's a.
the HLC. So those are staff updates and future agenda items.
I have one more staff update, sorry. So the city clerk is looking into, translation interpretation services. Trying to figure that out. They understand that it is very important and for the EJ element, and also it is noted in the draft work plan for housing commission too, so made them aware of that. The issues they're trying to work out with is that in a room like this or like a smaller space, it's not gonna really work because they need the space to be able to translate live without having interference with other people talking, things like that. So trying to figure that out. And also looking into possibly maybe using AI
Oh, okay.
to assist. If anyone has any kind of experience with AI, any kind of background, feel free to let me know so I can pass it on to the city clerk. They're just kind of, brainstorming and thinking things through
I guess-
on how to bring the services.
Yeah, not in any sort of official capacity, but I've used Google Translate to talk to people before. I think it could potentially work. My main question would be like, is it allowable? If we had someone show up who spoke, exclusively Spanish, would it be okay for one of us to pull out our phone and use that to produce a translation?
Yeah, I don't think it would be an issue. It's
Okay.
just that lag when it comes to real time
Yeah.
interpretation.
Yeah.
And then you have to talk, stop,
Mhm.
Yes.
let go, and talk some more.
It's not ideal, but
Yes.
okay, I guess
Or maybe
I'll play with that as a fallback. Here or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I also have a concern about cultural, appropriate, translation. I mean, it's one thing to have AI translate, there's another thing to be. There's such a thing
Yeah.
as culturally appropriate translation and, I wouldn't, would really wanna. I'm concerned about that, there's training for culturally appropriate translation. So I know it's a thing and, I just wanna put that out there is, I mean, AI is better than nothing. But,
Human input would be
it's
better.
not like
Yeah.
optimal,
So
so, I know.
mine's more of a really quick question. So is the purpose to do live translation? Are our meetings currently translated post the meeting? So there's a translated version of,
Mhm.
so what's the objective
It
here?
would be live translation.
Okay.
So
So for
they're,
one meeting, we can have it,
Okay, got it,
or
got
that
it.
was the original.
Yeah, in council meetings, they have live interpreters
Okay.
in the back
Yeah.
who provide
Oh,
live
okay.
interpretation. But for smaller meetings such as this at Bellhaven,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially to have live interpreters talking at the
Okay.
same time.
Yeah.
Is a
Okay,
little
so
it's logistically problematic, so looking into it easier, maybe it's a captioning. But just all ideas, for future.
Yeah. I think this is
meetings.
maybe slightly out of order, going back to the last point, sorry. I was just gonna suggest, I think we were having this displacement back before us, which was the November, December meeting, but that seems like a great opportunity to speak directly to Bellhaven when it comes before us again. Sorry, let me,
I believe it's December.
okay, just since we're considering a meeting anyways, that might be a good one to think about targeting.
Well, figure out the live interpret.
Yeah. That would be the thing.
All right, well, if there are no further comments, I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:21.
We're done. Charles's introduction.